John Swann is with the Community Foundation. The topic here is the hospital downtown. Are we getting a bit out of control? Certainly this Ray Jadwick is somebody who enjoys parody, putting out, using social media, plenty of flyers and that sort of thing. Recently, there was a flyer that was put out that parodied an event, I guess it'd be a fundraiser for Tony Pacini, almost implying that if you were a gay couple, you have to pay more. If you're a biracial couple, or they even, and they're not allowed. Clearly, the implication is that Anthony Pacini and the group that is for the hospital is a racist group. John Swann is on now from the Community Foundation. Are we going a little too far into the weeds here, John?
Well, good morning, and thanks for the opportunity. First of all, I'd just like to say that there's so much progress being made on this project, and there are so many good things happening and good things still to come, that it's really unfortunate that we have to spend time talking about these topics. But having said that, the foundation and its partners, the Genesis Group, the Utica Chamber of Commerce, Greater Utica Chamber of Commerce, and Mohawk Valley Edge, which you know under the banner of New MV Hospital, issued a statement on this last week. And if I could just read to you a couple of phrases from that.
Yeah.
The coalition, New MV Hospital, condemns recent social media communications of the No Hospital Downtown group, especially the use of racist and homophobic references and other hateful language, as well as manipulated imagery. No Hospital has said on social media that it will publish the home addresses of hospital supporters who own businesses in Utica. This threatening rhetoric is unacceptable intimidation and an attempt to suppress differing opinions. No place in our community for these tactics. We urge the leaders and members of the group to refrain from behavior that only serves to divide our community. So we see this, as do others, like the Mohawk Valley Latino Association, the YWCA, Senator Griffo, Assemblyman Brindisi, all of whom issued statements in the last 3 days or so. We see this not just as an isolated instance of a few memes or a parody of an event invitation, but a continuing and unfortunate need to take the low road, shall we say, in the name of exciting interest in and support for a point of view. And we think it's really unfortunate that it's come to this point.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I listen, some of this stuff I'll say I snicker at. You know, it's memes, it's fun or whatever, but I totally think there's a line crossed here. You're saying if someone in the community supports this project, we're going to tell other people in the community where you live and what you do for a living and your home address? For what purpose? Doesn't that sound like just a threat on its own? For what purpose do I need to know where Bill Keeler lives? Why? Because I'm going to go to your house, and if I'm going to go, for what reason am I going to go?
Yeah.
They have a debate with you? You have a radio show.
It's public knowledge, so that's the problem, is it's accessible to the public. So when you say a line is crossed, it's an ethical line. It is not a legal line. Do you agree with that, John?
Well, let me just read to you from the Mohawk Valley Latino Association statement. They issued this on April 27th. And they say consistent postings of the group on social media have been littered with overtly bigoted, ignorant, and racist imagery and language. The No Hospital Downtown leadership has missed a great opportunity to heal the wounds it has imposed on this community, but it condones the behavior. And we've seen this over the weekend. You saw the OD editorial yesterday. Mm-hmm. And they turned around and parodied the OD's own created image, which was meant to illustrate the whole concept. So they doubled down, essentially, and they also posted, I believe yesterday, essentially saying that social media is replacing print journalism, that the OD is going down, that the hospital project is doomed, and then they also said, and later or soon, a whole slew of elected officials whose names you know from the governor on down. So their agenda seems to have expanded a little bit beyond simply location.
Oh, I think that I certainly think that it has. And I think that if you're with them, then you're with them. If you're not with them, then you must be against them. And that means I think they have a plan like they already did. I don't think we should be surprised, I guess.
Well, we saw
because we saw it during the election last year when they tried to form a party, a No Hospital Downtown party. They are the you could call them the very vocal and loud minority. They claim they're the majority, but one thing is for sure, they're certainly loud and they're making noise. But I just worry, John, that the more that you and others come out against them, the more they're going to double down. And I think they're showing that's exactly what they're going to do. Did anybody ever hear of Reed Jadwick before this?
Actually, years ago.
I did. I remember.
For the same reason, right?
Yeah, it was. I forgot what the topic was, but he was doing parody stuff a long time ago, and I tried to have him.
I think they were trying to put a new stop sign on a street corner somewhere.
Might have been. But I guess what I'm saying is, aren't we just giving attention to them, and it's really giving them name recognition?
Well, I would point out that Assemblyman Brindisi struck, I think, an appropriate middle ground here, apart from condemning this so-called satire and ridicule. He is calling on the leadership of the group, Jim Brock and Brett Truitt. In his statement, he says he respectfully asks them to disavow this recent behavior and to exert more control over the messages No Hospital Downtown sends to the public. And really, civility here is key. And I know you've addressed this on your show before. Mm-hmm. There is so much good about this once-in-a-lifetime project that is coming to downtown Utica that we could be focusing on, and that, in fact, we will focus on in the not-too-distant future, that it would behoove the two leaders of the group to try to focus on the issues and not resort to these tactics.
Just as a follow-up regarding they say, they counter, I'd like your reaction to this, John, there's nothing more violent and despicable, I'm paraphrasing because I've lost the actual thing, than coming in and bulldozing people's businesses in a downtown community. Their counter-argument is, you guys are the ones threatening violence and hate and destruction in our city. What is your reaction to that?
Well, it's an interesting take on a public-private project that has bipartisan support from every level of government and also widespread support from community groups and leaders, the business community, the Chamber of Commerce, and we all know that healthcare and economic development are priorities for this community. So to say that a legitimate, publicly endorsed, legal process to build a hospital is somehow a bad thing, it really defies logic. Are
you? Do you have a response to Congresswoman Tenney coming out and somehow reinventing eminent domain and her perception of it? By the way, I thought it was quite interesting to learn that one of her first jobs as an attorney actually worked on eminent domain. But would you comment on her statement?
Well, on behalf of New MB Hospital, the foundation, and the other partners here, it's not up to us to take to task individual politicians for taking a particular point of view. But I would say that eminent domain has been made a kind of scare tactic throughout, and eminent domain is quite old. It's a last resort for projects of this kind, but it is not thievery, and it is not illegal, and it is not it is not all of the evil things that it has been made out to be, and it certainly is legal and an acceptable public process, although one that is a last resort for the public good.
And it is constitutional.
Well, you'd have to talk to an attorney, but from what I've read, yes.
Yeah, well, history might tell us that it is. In this country, anyway. Andrew was in, where were you?
I was in Tampa, Florida. Now, Florida is booming just because, the weather's nice and everything, and Tampa's a big city, big major city, a lot of sports teams there, but they've got a practically brand new downtown, and what they're doing is unbelievable. And my cousin, he's a big-time lawyer in Tampa, and he's well-respected in the state, and he's top of his class at Notre Dame Law School, and he was driving me to the airport Saturday morning, and I was asking him all these questions about downtown, and without letting on that, we have a proposed Utica Downtown Hospital project, I said, do you have a hospital here in downtown Tampa? And he says, sure, we have Tampa General. He says, relatively new. And I said, well, how's that on an economic status? Has it helped at all? And he said, without that downtown hospital in Tampa, Florida, they wouldn't be able to do half the things they're doing when it comes to entertainment, and other businesses moving in there, because the main people that are going to shows, concerts, movies, things like that are the doctors and the nurses and patient family members.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And he said that without, and again, I didn't ever talk to him about the fact that we had a downtown proposed project here, but in Tampa Bay, Florida, they have Tampa General, and he says that is a huge driver of the success down there.
You want to comment on that, John?
Well, one of the things that I have heard from project partners is that the opposition to even the discussion of eminent domain and the other levels of opposition that we've seen here are due in part to the fact that we have little success in recent decades with what it means to be a growth economy and what comes with that. People have complained about the potential disruption that the construction would visit upon the downtown. You've seen complaints about similar disruption to the traffic patterns that the Oriskany Boulevard project is going to mean, the arterial project. All of these, up to and including the eminent domain discussion, is evidence, some say, that we really don't understand what it means to be in a growth economy, and we're on the cusp of becoming a growth economy in our own way. The other point that I'd like to make about this is the project has so much progress now that you've seen announced in the last, since you folks were away, things that are happening that we need to remind people about. The certificate of need has been granted, which was long awaited, is critical to the project. It means that it is real and it is moving forward. The eminent domain issue has been resolved and hopefully will not have to be exercised, but that was a stumbling block that some had identified. And finally, nearly a third of the property owners in the project footprint have come to agreement with the hospital to sell needed parcels for the project. So we're seeing progress on all fronts, and unfortunately we do have to deal with this negativity, this sideshow, if you will.
I was just going to add, there's another part of this, of course, the State Environmental Quality Review. And Wednesday, I just encourage people to stay with us because we will have the attorney on with any questions about this. There is another component of this and a number of studies that need to be done as well. But you're right, the process is moving forward.
And there's another issue here, and there are property owners down there that are probably getting a better deal this way than they would if they put their place up for sale. And they've agreed to work with the MVHS. Talk about that just a little bit.
Well, those are private negotiations, obviously, between the hospital and private property owners. And while we know the round numbers, 35 property owners in the project footprint, nearly a third that have come to an agreement, 3 that are adamant that they will not sell, and others that are in negotiation, we have heard that those who have agreed to sell stipulated that confidentiality remain intact because they fear that they would be held up to scorn and ridicule from project opponents, just as we have seen other private citizens and public officials have been.
So they might have parodies made about them on Facebook.
I think that is their fear.
In reality, though, John, let's be honest, it is, while it might be tasteless, it might be inappropriate. It might not be constructive from the standpoint of government. What they're doing is not illegal. Can we at least acknowledge that?
And I haven't seen anyone who claims that there is any legal question to be debated here. No defamation. No one has claimed that. I think people have called for civility, and they have called out the images and some of the language because of specific racist and homophobic references.
Tasteless, maybe racist and homophobic, but as for the legalities of it, the other thing I ask you is, are they reaching a point now, is Jim Brock and Brett Truitt and the No Hospital Group reaching a point where their efforts have not worked, and so, therefore, this is the reaction you're going to get? They're reaching to maybe stooping to a new low in order to, in hopes, make this more difficult for the project to move forward?
Well, I think that would be a good question to put to them the next time you have them on the show.
Okay. All right, John, later this week we will have, I think we're going to touch on this again later in the week, and please keep us abreast of that. Let's get somebody in and keep the topic going.
Will do, and let's keep the positive news going on this project because it is for the community's long-term good.
All right, John Swann from the Community Foundation. Mario, who I believe is made it known he's against the hospital downtown. Actually, Mario, you tend to be against a lot, but what's your take on this?
Well, I think you really ought to find someone other than a nuke to come on and complain about it. Does Johnny need a binky? I can't believe you let these people on the air. It's real unfortunate that people.
That's what they say about you, by the way.
Yeah, I agree. It's unfortunate because now that's all he talks about. The only people talking about this are these people for the hospital because they have nothing else to talk about. There's all kinds of issues with the hospital they're not talking about. This isn't vastly supported. The only politicians that support it are on the take. The Latino community.
Okay, all right, Mario,
please, Mario, stop. Okay,
Mario. You're so smart. We should elect you emperor.
I'm not the emperor.
No, you should. No, I believe so. You know everything. And by the way, you're
lying.
No, you know everything. I agree. Listen, I think they're making a mistake by coming out against the Facebook page. I think it's a mistake.
All it's doing is getting them more viewers.
That's exactly right. As a radio host who has a career,
get these clowns off the air.
Mario, please. As a radio person who's made a career out of making noise, I remember when it was Mayor Ed Hanna's attorneys that brought me in and said, what you've done here, saying the mayor was going to resign, is horrific, and it could be borderline illegal, and we're ordering you to stop, and it was in the newspaper. And at one point I said, you do realize I love every time you end up in the paper or on TV talking about this is the greatest thing in the world for my career. You're only bringing...
tell these guys, Bill, because they're losing it, and this is what their reaction is. They want to sit there and attack personal individuals, so it's nonsense.
And we'll talk to Anthony Brindisi coming up in a second. His take basically is... Jim and Brett, if you truly are against this thing, how about reining in your group and not attacking people individually? And he has every right to do that. I just think that by bringing attention to Ray Jadwick and his photoshopping abilities, Ray is loving this. I don't know this guy.
You don't even want to know what
but he's got to be
down the pipeline.
He's got to be loving it, right?
Yeah.
Mario, can I ask, who's on the take? What do you mean on the take?
That's what I want to get back to.
When I say on the take, I don't mean there's little envelopes of money going around. If you look at every one of the last week, all these people that were complaining about this, every single one of them is beholden to the same loser politicians that can't even fix a pothole. They want to make this state, they want to make the whole city take on all this debt. They can't even explain where the nano went. Nobody dares ask them. Otherwise, they show you their teeth. Please, Bill, people are awake to what's going on here. Get on the winning team for a change.
Well, I ain't going on your team, Mario, but thanks for the offer. I appreciate it.
All right.
Good
day, guys.
Say goodbye.